Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and today we're back. We're going to work on a reel that I got as part of a group purchase that I made. Bought a lot of fishing reels, LOT, not many, just a lot, several reels, several rods. I previewed those, and I thought I would take this one apart. I haven't worked on one of these. This is from a company, or the brand is Pinnacle. I am always at a loss to say what Pinnacle does. I believe that Pinnacle was a brand for distributors, but I can never find any contact information in terms of who to contact, where to get spare parts or anything like that, and even if they exist any longer. Since I buy these used, I don't have any original paperwork, so I couldn't tell you with any certainty that that was ever supported. At any rate, this one is a Pinnacle Vision. It's a round bait caster. It's a nice little reel. And we're going to take it apart. We're going to see how it's made. We are going to work on the reel. It's got a 5.3 gear ratio and 4 ball bearings, so it's a nice solid reel in that regard. And we'll show you, if you have one, how to maintain it. And if you see one come up for sale and you're interested, what it's made of, so that you can buy it. So I'm going to start by removing the exterior parts. I couldn't find a schematic online anywhere. But I can find the time to thank our first responders and essential personnel and everybody involved in keeping us safe during the pandemic, whether it's fire, police, rescue, EMT, hospital workers, medical field staff, long-term care facilities, and supply chains, teachers, and everybody else that's doing their job to make our life a little bit easier during the pandemic. Thank you for what you do. To remove the external parts, you've got to remove the handle nut first, and this handle is loaded with salt, so I'm not quite sure it's going to be easy to get that handle off, and we may need to pause and let some penetrating oil here do its trick. But let's see if we get lucky. I scraped away, there you go, I scraped away some of the residue, and depending on what these metals are made of in the reel handle itself, sometimes these things can get fused on pretty good, and sometimes the corrosion actually erodes the cutout for the handle, and it makes it inoperable because it's just too loose for it to continue. Well, we got lucky there. This is a good time to tell you to take pictures along the way. If you're working on a reel like this and you can't get the schematic and you don't work on them frequently, and I qualify for all of the above. So take pictures. That way, if you're taking something off and you have to walk away or you lose your track, going to reinstall, it's going to be a little bit easier if you have pictures you can reference. Okay, well, I still see an awful lot of accumulation of debris in here. So it looks like we have some salt stuff that got behind the key in addition to in front of it. But let's back it off. Turn this counterclockwise to remove your star assembly. This is your adjuster. I'm kind of expecting to see what I would see inside of something like the old Shakespeare SKPs and the like. I'm not quite sure of when this generation of reel was made. It is a solid frame. It does have an instant anti-reverse, so it says it's a little bit more modern in that regard. It also looks like it has a lot of issues here with some rust and corrosion on that anti-reverse, but it does work, so it is holding. All right, I put those two little tension washers inside of my adjuster cap. I put my adjuster cap into a parts tray. In this case, it's a fast food container, but it's a place where I just like to put parts so that I know when I go to reinstall that they're all centrally located and not laying around on my table. This is a 2-screw take apart to get this off of the reel, so we're going to remove them. These have what I call thumb screws. There's cross hatching on the heads, and once you feel it free of the case, you can remove that. And with a good little tug and a pull, we can get that off. And it's kind of what I expected to see. Inside is not terribly unusual in that regard. We do have a trip lever here. You want to pay attention to that when it's time to reinstall this. The spool has the 4 brakes on it. It has the worm drive for your level wind. We can pull that out because it does appear that there is a ball bearing back there. We did say this reel has 4 ball bearings, and you want to make sure that they're clean. There's nothing going on in this case back here. You can't even access this case from the outside. You would have to pull the 2 screws here to remove this little inset, and there it would only be a matter of well, I'm not even sure what's there other than a trim ring, and I'm not going to spend any time taking that off because it's non-functional. Okay, flood that bearing with some fishing reel oil. Check the inside, make sure that you can clean that of any dirt and debris that might be in there. Water does get in there, water does evaporate, and that does leave its trail, so get that out of there, especially if it's salt water that you're fishing in. I have a little bit of braid here from the last owner. Kind of tied that braid off. And here's a quick little tip on this braid stuff. This is the type of reel that does not have backing on it. So it's a smooth-sided reel, and it's best if you put about 8 or 10 yards of monofilament on this spool before you start packing with braid. That way you won't get braid slip. Looks like they tried to do something here with maybe Scotch tape or something. I guess it worked, because it seems to me that they didn't give up on the reel for that. Here's the trip lever. It's spring driven, I can tell that. There's a spring. I guess if we pull this side down here, you would have access to it. Just a little drop of oil in the channel here, just to keep it functioning. And just clean up that little tag. We can set that aside. All right, let's go over to the main assembly then. See what we got going in here. I expect something kind of generic. And the reason I expect that is I think this is a generic brand. I just, I don't know that there's a manufacturing site that's got Pinnacle on its outside. And I just think that there's a job shop somewhere made these, and they're probably working off of a standard type of an assembly. 4 ball bearings, 5.3 to 1. Let's pull this case off. Yeah, this is pretty generic stuff in here. And it looks like on the inside of this reel it hasn't been used much. So it felt very smooth. It didn't feel like there was any kind of issue there. I'm looking at the grease. I don't know what year this was last serviced, but looks clean, and that's always a good sign. I'm going to pull that sleeve off. We're going to remove the main gear assembly. Not sure what we got here. Clean up the dirt here. You don't oil anti-reverse bearings. Somebody had asked me that before. Here's a spool bearing up here, so we're going to oil that one. We're going to remove the yoke and the pinion gear. We're going to oil the back bearing here. You can put a drop of oil underneath here if you like, but I don't believe there's a bearing there, and you don't need to do anything if it's clean. If it's not clean, well, of course you want to take that off and clean it, but again, this looks like it's had very limited use to it. I'm going to put a drop of oil behind that moving part there that's going to push up and down on your trip lever. This is your trip lever. So your trip lever is kind of oblong that just fits one way on this. You got to make sure that it's seated. You can see here how it's seated, because if it's not the 2 flat sides into the flat side of the gear shaft, then the trip lever is not going to work. All right, we're going to clean the yoke off here. Get the old grease off, put some new grease on. This one's a little hard to mess up because it's not symmetrical. So when you go to reinstall, it can only go on one way. That's good to know, because I've seen a lot of reels come into my shop where somebody said I was working on it. The reel doesn't work now, and what happens was they reverse the yoke, and that won't work. All right, good amount of grease on the pinion gear. You wanted to check to make sure that all of those teeth are aligned properly and that they are not bent or broken or chipped in any regard. There's a slot here. That's the spool side. The spool side goes down. And again, you'll know right away if you have this wrong because one leg is longer than the other, and you wouldn't be able to put it back that way. All right, turn our attention to the main gear here. I'm liking what I'm seeing in this reel. I'm not sure what it was sold as or what the pricing was on it, but this piece kind of looks like an Abu Garcia internal for an Ambassador. This is a plastic Teflon kind of a ring, so that doesn't get any kind of lubrication to it. And we're just going to check the teeth on the main gear, which is very clean. Again, it looks like, if anything, this reel hasn't been serviced in a while. It was turning very smoothly when I tested it before, so that's a hint that you don't have to look for too much. Of course, if you're the owner of the reel, you kind of know what you're in for. And a lot of times when somebody will drop a reel off, that's the first question I'll ask: is there any performance issue going on here that I should be aware of? Because that way it'll tell me if there's something broken, how to go fix that. This tension washer has a bell in it. You can see it's not flat, it's raised here in that section. It's kind of dimpled on the inside here. The raised section goes up. Then we have that little collar that belongs on the gear shaft that's going to intersect with your anti-reverse. Let's go ahead and put that collar on. For some reason I'm getting a little stuck. I'm wondering if there's a little issue there. There we go. Wondering if there wasn't any kind of salt buildup in those threads. Just to be sure, you can take a brush, now that we have those threads fully exposed. Just kick out any debris that might be there. Wipe it off your board there so that you get it. This one's turning very nicely. Okay, just back to reassembly then. Put the two springs back on the posts. Grab our plate. These two screws are the screws that go into the frame. They're going to go into these two holes here, so that's a good way to kind of give you the alignment for the rough fit. Just like that, a nice snap there. Let's go ahead and put the first one of these in. Those of you that know me and these reels know that I do have a little bit of issue with these small screws. So it's a good time to ask you to subscribe. If you enjoy this type of channel, please subscribe. And if you do subscribe, hit the notifications button. That way you'll see what I post and you'll be able to determine whether that's something that's interesting to you or not. Work on all kinds of reels. This one's a round bait caster. Work on low profile bait casters, spinning reels, and I work on all of the saltwater reels as well, the large spinners, the trolling reels, the lever drag reels, level wind reels, all kinds of work. So if you like that, hit the notification button after you subscribe and you'll be able to see which ones are more relevant to you than others. I try to post frequently. I try to post every day. It's kind of in support of the frontline workers, because they're at work every day kind of doing stuff. I figured I would try and kind of match them, and I'll tell you, it's exhausting, but it's something that I've committed myself to do. All right, we've got grease on the shaft. I put a little grease on that plastic part. It doesn't have to be, but I did do that. You want to line up. This circle here is going to be where that gear for the drive goes in. And up here, it's always good to trip this to the on position. That way you can't mess up the bar. Get that nice snap. Start it with your fingers. And then all you have to do is service that level wind worm gear. I like this reel. And put some line on it and go see how it casts. Generally, I don't like the level wind feature on a casting reel. And the reason for that is that level wind guide slows the release of the line. However, in this case, this is such a narrow spool that it's pretty much going to be targeted all the time at the same place. So they tell you when you go to cast, as an informational point, that you should always make sure prior to casting that your level wind guide is centered. That way it's going to be an equal travel here and you will get longer distance. If for some reason you find that you're casting and it's all the way over on the side here, that's definitely going to slow it down as the line is being pulled like this. There'll be a lot of friction on the inside, and likewise on the other side, right? If you have it parked over there as you're casting, when the line that's on this side of the spool is trying to get out of that, well, then you're going to have a problem, right? So they say always get to the center of this. And from what I'm seeing here, that line guide does not move. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. This line guide does not move when you're in casting mode. I like that feature because it's less drag on the spool as it turns, right? This line guide's being driven by the main gear, not by the spool. So that makes it for an excellent casting reel, but make sure that as you go to cast that you're centered on that piece. All right, we're going to move this over to the side so I can take the pawl cover off. I have no reason to believe that the pawl is any problem here, but this is just part of what you want to do as a service. I'm going to get that cap off. Let's see if you can remove that. Looking for the cap. See if you can remove the pawl. And you want to check the shoulders on this pawl. And the reason why I did take this out was this hasn't been serviced in a while. So check the shoulders here, because you can see that there's grease and that coming up from there. Sometimes you just get a lot of dirt that clogs this area, and that will eventually impair the operation. Okay, the worm gear was working fine, so you didn't need to do anything there. Drop of oil inside the cavity. Let's go ahead and put the pawl back in. Sometimes you get lucky and you can just kind of snap that in place by holding your finger on the pawl. Get it to the side so that you can put the cap in. And then we're pretty much done other than putting the piece in there. So I've already asked you to subscribe. If you like these kinds of videos, please like this. And if you have a question on this reel or any reel in particular, then if you leave it in the comments section, I'll try to answer those questions for you. It doesn't have to be about this reel. It can be any reel. I get questions on, what kind of grease do you use, things like that. What type of fishing is this relevant to, things like that. Go right ahead and ask the questions. If I can, I'll certainly answer those questions for you. All right. So we have 2 tension washers. These are curved again. You can nest these by putting the 2 curves together. You can make them opposing, which is what I'm doing here, or you can make them back to back. All of them have a different level of tension, and what that does is it makes this either more sensitive or less sensitive in terms of the number of turns you need to do to get your star adjuster in place and tighten down. All right, well, I'm just trying to get that first piece started here. So I have a turning shaft here. Somebody told me about that turning shaft solution. I just don't know what it is at the moment. So there you go. There you go. I think that was it. I think their answer was if you put it into the cast mode, this won't turn. And yes, they're right. So there you go. See, I trust and value our viewers' opinions and tips all the time. If you can use them, that's wonderful. Eventually, I guess we'll tighten down and trip that lever there. There you go. Okay. So we all just learned something there. Or at least I did. All right. If we remember how this went then, next up was this little washer underneath the handle. Then the handle. And the handle nut. So finally, if you have a reel that you need repaired or serviced, and you're not up for servicing it yourself, I do repair reels by mail, and if you send me a note on the business card that follows this video, I will be happy to provide you with reel repair information. All right, we're going to tighten this up. A general tip about the lining up of this screw hole is to have this flat or perpendicular to the hole. So if your nut side is flat, perpendicular to the hole, generally that will line up. And as I say that, it doesn't. So such is life. There you go. So we'll just get this tightened down. We'll give it a test. Make sure everything works nicely. I'm going to spool this up with some line. And I'm going to go see how it casts. Now it's in. Give it a spin there. Oh, I like this. I like it a lot. I would guess that the drag washers in this could be replaced because that drag washer looks very much like an Abu drag washer. I would guess that the bearings could be replaced. I would guess if you need any other parts, you're in trouble. Look at that. I like that reel a lot. All right, so this is the Pinnacle Vision 4-ball bearing reel. VS10 is the model number on this one. Very nice and smooth and easy working round bait caster. So if you have any information on the Pinnacle company, I would be interested to learn more on that. Like I said, I think this is probably a job shop somewhere that's making this one for mass distributors. Just not sure. So with that, I want to thank everybody for watching. Please keep safe, keep healthy. Do your job in terms of keeping us all safe and healthy during the pandemic. And keep watching and keep fishing. Have a great day.